The Abandoned Asylum, a tale of terror. Deep in the heart of the forest, there stood an old abandoned asylum. It had been empty for years, left to rot and decay in the darkness. Many people in the nearby town had heard strange noises coming from the building at night, and some had even reported seeing ghostly figures wandering the grounds. Despite the warnings of the townsfolk, a group of curious teenagers decided to explore the abandoned asylum one night. They parked their car outside the rusted gates and climbed over the fence, making their way inside the dark, foreboding building. As they made their way through the maze-like hallways, they heard whispers and footsteps coming from the shadows. Their flashlights flickered and went out, leaving them in complete darkness. Suddenly, they heard the sound of something dragging itself towards them, its footsteps echoing loudly off the walls. Panic set in as they tried to find their way out, but the doors seemed to be locked from the outside. They could feel a cold, clammy breath on their necks, and they knew they were not alone. The ghosts of the asylum's past inhabitants had returned, seeking vengeance on those who had dared to trespass in their domain. The teenagers screamed and ran, but the ghosts were relentless. They chased them through the dark, twisting corridors, their howls echoing through the halls. The teenagers were trapped, with no way out. As the sun began to rise, the police found the teenagers' car parked outside the asylum. They searched the building but found no trace of the teenagers. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. To this day, the abandoned asylum still stands in the heart of the forest, a reminder of the horrors that lurk in the darkness. Some say that the ghosts still haunt the asylum, waiting for their next victim to cross the threshold. Years passed, and the abandoned asylum became a popular spot for ghost hunters and thrill seekers. Many people went in search of the paranormal, hoping to experience the same terror that the teenagers had faced years before. One night, a group of ghost hunters decided to explore the asylum. They set up their equipment and began their investigation, but soon they realized that something was different this time. The air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to grow darker. The ghost hunters heard strange whispers and footsteps coming from the shadows. Suddenly, their equipment began to malfunction, and their flashlights flickered and went out. As they tried to find their way out, they heard the sound of something dragging itself towards them. The ghost hunters screamed and ran, but they were too late. The ghosts of the asylum had returned, and they were hungry for revenge. The ghost hunters were trapped, with no way out. The ghosts chased them through the dark, twisting corridors, their howls echoing through the halls. The ghost hunters were helpless, and they knew that they were going to die. As the sun began to rise, the police found the ghost hunters' equipment and belongings outside the asylum. They searched the building but found no trace of the ghost hunters. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. The abandoned asylum still stands in the heart of the forest, a reminder of the horrors that lurk in the darkness. People still go in search of the paranormal, but those who venture into the asylum never return. Some say that the ghosts of the asylum still haunt the building, waiting for their next victim to cross the threshold. Others say that the asylum is cursed, and that those who enter its walls will never leave alive. Despite the rumors of the ghosts and the curse surrounding the abandoned asylum, a group of 4 thrill seekers decided to venture inside. They had heard the stories, but they didn't believe in ghosts. They thought it would be fun to explore the creepy old building, to see if they could find any evidence of the paranormal. They entered the asylum with their flashlights and cameras, excited and eager to begin their adventure. They started to explore the dark and eerie corridors, but soon they realized that they were not alone. They heard strange whispers and footsteps coming from the shadows, and their flashlights flickered and went out. Suddenly, they heard the sound of something dragging itself towards them, and they knew that they had made a grave mistake. The ghosts of the asylum had returned, and they were angry that the thrill seekers had disturbed their rest. The thrill seekers tried to run, but the ghosts were too fast. They chased them through the twisting corridors, their howls echoing through the halls. The thrill seekers were trapped, with no way out. As they huddled together, scared and alone, the ghosts appeared before them. They were pale and translucent, with hollow eyes and long, twisted limbs. The thrill seekers screamed and begged for mercy, but the ghosts were relentless. The next morning, the police found the cameras and equipment of the thrill seekers outside the asylum. They searched the building, but they found no trace of the thrill seekers. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. From that day on, nobody dared to venture into the abandoned asylum. The stories of the ghosts and the curse spread, and people stayed away from the old building. It remained empty and desolate, a reminder of the horrors that lurked in the darkness. As the sun began to rise, the police found the cameras and equipment of the thrill seekers outside the asylum. But as they searched the building, they found something that made their blood run cold. The ghosts of the asylum had taken their revenge, and they had left a message for anyone who dared to enter their domain. Written on the wall in blood were the words, "You should have listened. Now you'll never leave." From that day on, the abandoned asylum became known as the most haunted place in the world. People whispered of the ghosts and the curse that surrounded the building, and nobody dared to venture inside. It remained empty and desolate, a place of darkness and terror that nobody could escape. But some say that on certain nights, when the moon is full and the air is cold, you can still hear the screams of the thrill seekers echoing through the halls of the asylum. And if you listen closely, you can hear the whispers of the ghosts, warning you to stay away. The abandoned asylum remains a place of fear and horror, a reminder of the dangers that lurk in the darkness. And if you ever find yourself wandering in the forest, you should remember the words written on the wall in blood, and you should turn back before it's too late.